7 of Destination Talk. I'm John Paz.
And I am Harry, and we are coming to you from Stellar 19 Studios, located at 750 Route 34 in Mattawan, New Jersey. Today, we are honored to have on the show Luke Barry. Luke is a resident of Westfield, New Jersey. He graduated from Madison University, and he just signed his first professional contract with the New York Empire in the Ultimate Frisbee Association. Luke, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm good, guys. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here, so I really appreciate the invitation. And yeah, doing awesome today. Very excited.
So I want to start with what's gone on recently in your life. You just signed a professional contract with the New York Empire. Can you tell us a little bit about how that process went?
Yeah, of course. So that was a super exciting, just kind of validation of a lot of hard work, 100%. And then additionally, it's been like a long time coming. I've been in and around that scene for 4 to 6 years now, and trying out for that team specifically for like the past 3 to 4. And so I was graduating and coming back to the New Jersey, New York area. And so I had a lot more time and a lot more availability, which definitely helped out. And so was talking to a few different teams within the Philadelphia, New York area, and was getting some interest in both ways, which is super exciting. And yet again, like super validating to a lot of hard work that went into the process. And then to put my name on the dotted line for the first time ever was like just an awesome, just an awesome experience, and super grateful that New York reached out and afforded me the opportunity to do so. So it was a ton of fun, and we peaked and we're about to hit another valley of climbing back up the ladder, but super validating and very grateful for that.
Interesting fact: the head coach of that team was a guest on our show, Anthony Nunez. He was on episode 33, so I know that's someone you know very well.
Very well. Also coached me all throughout high school and in a lot of youth club scenes. So I'm very familiar, and Nunez has been a huge impact on not only me as an individual, but in my career as well. So yeah, very, very good mentor, coach, and close friend at this point. Yeah.
So when you were growing up in Westfield, did you ever envision seeing this moment happen for you?
That's a great question. I don't think I had with the sport the way it is at this current junction, I don't think I saw that happening. I didn't really know what possibilities there were out, for me individually in the sport. I knew I wanted to continue to play at the highest level. I had a very early passion and love for the game, but I don't think I was entirely aware of how far it could go and how much opportunity there was out there until a little bit later on. But in Westfield, we were scratching the surface still, definitely, not only as an athlete, but additionally as like a Frisbee player in general.
So growing up, what other sports did you play? What kind of got you into, Frisbee?
My parents threw everything at the wall. I mean, we were everything but the kitchen sink. I tried baseball, soccer, lacrosse. I did all the the big ones, hockey, and then we got desperate at some point. I think my parents threw me into like horseback riding. I was an equestrian for a few years, so we definitely did everything, and Frisbee just stuck for some reason. I didn't have a rhyme or reason at first. I just picked it up, and then I couldn't get away from the sport. So yeah, it was just one of the ones I tried. I just wanted to get out there and try a lot of new things and a lot of different sports, and this one was the one that stuck easily.
Prior to making that commitment to Frisbee, was there another sport you were playing that you thought, hey, this might stick for me?
Basketball. Yeah. Basketball easily was the biggest sport that I was into. I'm still, watching and ingrained in a lot of communities within basketball, but not the way I am with Frisbee. But I have a lot of love and I put a lot of time into basketball. That was definitely my secondary sport.
So growing up, everyone has a mentor or a coach or somebody they really looked up to that made a big impact. Who was that person for you?
I think player-wise, I took a lot of inspiration and learned a lot from a few different guys within the community. Johnny Sickles, who plays out in Colorado now, Donovan Hugel, who now is coaching and playing in the New Jersey area, Eli Weaver, who I think is now kind of retired from the sport a little bit more. Just some of these names that I played with in high school and that continued to play during college and into like the club and pro circuits. And they were super influential, not only to like figuring out how to become better and train harder and put out a better product on the field, but additionally, like how to, conduct yourself, how to, be a better person, be a better athlete, teammate. Those were a lot of big people in my life. And then, there were guys that I picked up along the way, David Perry, who's now one of my best friends, but also was like a senior when I was a freshman. And you would just, I was just sitting there ogling at what they could do on the field when I was first watching them. And now, to play with them and against them is super fun. So there were a few different guys, but I definitely picked up a lot from those individuals.
Mm-hmm. Having mentioned those names, were there any traits or any characteristics that they kind of put out there that you were able to pick up on and that you were able to then bring into your own game?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. The sport is so, I mean, it's not young per se, but it's so new and fresh in a lot of people's minds that there's still so much learning and developing, and it's a lot of like player-led movement and growth. And so not only are you trying out new things within the sport, new offenses, new defenses, new, ways of throwing, new ways of trying to win the game, but you're constantly grabbing something from somebody else and making it your own. So, I mean, for me, it was, I knew so much skill work from Johnny, from Eli, athleticism from a few different guys. I mean, David was so fast when we were younger, and it was just crazy to see him just blow by coverages. So I picked up a lot of throwing techniques and how to throw the ball the way I wanted to, the Frisbee per se, the disc, the way I wanted to from Johnny and Weaver and a few other guys. But how to attack defenses and how to, put your defender on the back heel was a lot of David Perry and a few other guys that I was just watching and picking up some like stuff from slowly. It was very incremental. It was not huge jumps. But yeah, picked up a lot of stuff from them over time.
So a lot of our viewers might not know what Ultimate Frisbee is. Do you mind explaining the game a little bit, the rules, just the basics?
Yeah, of course. So it's similar to a few different amalgamations of different sports ball put together. So I would say it's most closely like formats to like a football field. You have end zones that you're trying to score in. It's a 7v7 on a football-like field. And you're throwing the Frisbee or disc from one individual on your team to another. The big caveat is that once you catch it, you can't move with it. So immediately you catch it and you are set to a pivot, similar to basketball, and you're looking to continue the forward momentum of the disc down the field. If at any point in time, somebody that is guarding you on the other team either slaps the disc to the ground or catches it, or if it hits the ground without any other player having impact, it's a turnover. And in soccer, similar to soccer, the other team can immediately pick it up or, intercept the disc and go the other direction. So it's pretty fast paced, and you'll go like that for 3, 4, 5-minute points sometimes, where you're constantly sprinting, jogging into, unoccupied space, sprinting again, trying to get the disc, and then, trying to move the ball down the field. The big thing that I think makes a difference in the youth levels is that it's self-officiated for large mass majorities of the sport. That was the way that it was formatted and built from when it was first founded. So, you get to the pro levels or the higher levels, and there's definitely observers, referees, other people that impact the game. But the big thing is that for a mass majority of the people that play, it's all self-officiated. So it's you and the other teammate, or you and your other teammates and your opponent having an honest conversation about whether you got fouled or, you think the disc hit the ground, or whether that guy caught it or not, or, that person caught it or not. So that's the biggest difference between Frisbee and some of the other sports. But yeah, it pretty closely fits a lot of different formats.
Is there a lot of arguing and stuff like that when it comes to discrepancies and calls?
It depends on the league you're in. Yeah. I would say I've had my fair share of heated arguments. But for the most part, the community is built on that foundation of trust. And, like we all want to have a fun time playing the game that we love so much. And so, you'll get to higher levels and there's more on the line, and it's a little bit more contentious of a conversation. But for the most part, people are here to have a really good time, push themselves to the limit, and have fun playing against their opponents. Like if people want to get beat and then, get back out the next point and beat their opponent again. They don't want to cheat to have to do that. And that's the foundation of the sport and why I grew to love it so much at so many levels. But yeah, there's definitely, you run into a few people, you see the same people at tournaments or leagues, and, you don't want to get into a foul call conversation with them sometimes. But for the most part, it's definitely friendly and positive.
I think for me, that was the first thing that I recognized when I first saw the game played once before, no officials. And I'm like, how do we referee this game if there's no one there to keep the order? But the game went well, and there were no issues.
That would never work in wrestling.
No, it would not work in wrestling whatsoever. So
it's definitely unique in that way. I don't think that there's. I mean, I think it's helpful because it limits the infrastructure you need to put. You don't need to worry about referees and stuff like that for a lot of tournaments for high school or certain levels. But yeah, it definitely wouldn't fit for every sport out there. It's definitely a unique community that attaches to it.
Yeah, I don't think it would have worked in baseball.
No, that either. No.
Every pitch to me would have been a strike as a pitcher and a ball as a batter. So, Luke, as you started playing the sport and you were becoming better at it and realized, hey, there's a little bit of a path here, when did you start to realize there's a future for me?
Towards like my freshman or sophomore year of high school, definitely. I started to gain some interest from like our youth club scene, which is like what you consider, I mean, maybe like the New Jersey or New York area state team. Once I received some interest from there, like I really thought about taking the sport more seriously and seeing how far I could go and how much better I could get, and what my limits were. So that idea had popped into my head around then, and then by college, maybe sophomore, my junior year at James Madison, I was trying to figure out how to make the pro teams. How do I jump to the next level? How do I, do this and do that? I want to play at the highest level. I want to show what I can do, and I want to beat some of these guys that are up there. But yeah, by my freshman or sophomore year of high school, I was figuring out like I wanted to take this as seriously as I could and see how far I could go.
And can you just take a moment and speak a little bit to the Westfield High School program? Some really good people there, Coach Boline, as we said, Coach Nunez. So can you talk a little bit about that? Because Westfield's known very much for their ultimate program.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's the sweat equity that those two have put into that program. Ryan Boline, like just countless hours of planning, of organization, of training for so many kids that have passed through that system. I am indebted 100% and very lucky to have found, my niche in my community there and got such a great background and such great training and experience from like a wealth of knowledge that was through there. I don't think that many people that ended up playing Frisbee, I mean, maybe if you continued on later, you realized how lucky you were to play at a high school like Westfield. I mean, teams just don't have, high schools just don't have an ultimate Frisbee team. It's not a common thing anywhere. You have pockets of communities of, in Massachusetts and Colorado and California of 30, 40, 50 high school teams, 100%. But in New Jersey, it's a little bit of a smaller scene. And so I was so lucky and privileged to play through that program and to get taught so much by those people that have put on a lot of time to building up a really successful and awesome high school Frisbee team and program.
So recruiting is a big topic we have on the podcast here. Can you talk a little bit about your transition from high school to college, figuring out that James Madison was where you wanted to go?
Yeah, a lot of factors went into that decision. I definitely maybe was a little bit naive to how big a college decision was for me personally, but I lucked into James Madison and don't regret a moment I spent there. So I got really lucky. Obviously, there's the whole academic side of college and figuring out your career after, which was a big deal, and they had spent a lot of money on their business school, which was my field of interest. But then additionally, when you switch from like high school to a New Jersey state team or like a youth club level, you get connections with a lot of these guys that shoot off to college and you maybe don't hear from them for a year or two while you're finishing up high school. And so some guys that I knew that were very talented had gone to James Madison, and I visited, enjoyed the school, loved the people, loved the place. And then didn't get to know too much about the team early on, just that there were a few guys there. I'd seen a practice or two and some game film and watched a lot of like their rankings throughout the season during my senior and junior year. And then just decided to jump into it. My other alternatives were like UMass Amherst, like Pittsburgh was really good. These are really talented Frisbee programs. And James Madison was a little bit lower on the rung, and it just made more sense for me financially and for my field of interest as well. And then it ended up working out that I played some of the best Frisbee I've ever played there, made a bunch of connections, helped a lot of people learn the sport and get attached to it as well, which was really fun for me. But James Madison was awesome. Just like, a one-of-one experience. I'm super grateful. And the Frisbee there was, both a learning experience, but also some of the most fun I've ever had in my life.
If I can take it just back to the Westfield question, but then bring it to the present time, You spoke about your ability to play at a program under those coaches, went to James Madison, but other athletes as well, individuals that we both know. Max, who's at JMU also, Murray, who's over at UPitt, Ethan at UVA, University of Virginia. A lot of talent. I don't think people realize just how much talent has come out of this town in this sport to go to these other schools.
Yeah, it's astounding. I mean, the college scene is super interesting within Frisbee. I mean, you have teams at the top programs like Pittsburgh and like University of North Carolina, Colorado. These days, I think Brown, and there's so many universities that have now picked up, and there's now sending out scholarships and paying for players in some capacity, which is a new thing. And so those top teams, you grab guys from high school, and it's the normal, what you might think of a college recruiting process. They are coming out to outreach weekends. They're there. And then there's a smaller side of Ultimate, which is still growing, and it's still a niche sport in a lot of ways. And at James Madison, like, we have guys that were picking it up for the first or second time and picking it up very quickly. And so we wanted to grab them because they were incredibly athletic and picked up the sport. But it's such a different experience depending on where you go. And I was getting reached out to because I had experience. They knew me. They wanted more players that came through a Westfield like program that had experience, foundational skills. And that's where I went. But it's wildly and vastly different where depending on where you end up. And so a lot of these guys that go through the Westfield program will end up across the country. I always like to say New Jersey's biggest export is college kids. Like, everybody's either at Rutgers or TCNJ or Princeton, maybe, depending on your academic levels. And then otherwise you're getting out, and Ohio State and Colorado and California and Pittsburgh and North Carolina, Wilmington, and all the way down to Georgia and Florida. You're seeing kids run off to. So and pick up programs there. Influence their team and help out a lot. So super privileged. And there's a lot of guys that have gone through that program that have made huge strides and built foundations in their college teams and had huge impact at the college and elite pro level.
There's definitely a lot of talent in the state of New Jersey.
Oh yeah.
And I think if most of them stayed home, the schools you mentioned would be powerhouses. But I think that the whole point of growing and learning is you leave, and staying home works for some, and leaving for others works for others. So I think that's, but there's definitely a ton of talent in this state.
Across all sports too.
All sports.
Yeah.
All sports across the board. So Luke, one of the questions I like to ask our guests who have competed at the collegiate level, and you're one of the select few that has gone from college to the pro. So maybe you can talk about the transition in both ways. Can you explain to the kids out there, the parents that might be listening to this podcast, what it takes to be an elite level high school athlete, but then what it takes to then take your game to another level to go to college, and ultimately where you find yourself in the pros?
Yeah. So it's definitely a lot of time. Let's first put that into perspective. I think that Ultimate being so niche, you can accelerate very quickly within the sport. I mean, you have some guys that come out of high school that are very talented and very athletic and are ready to go play at the pro scene. I was not one of those, but I think that because it's so small, you can see players make that jump very quickly. So there's so much room. So, I mean, for parents and kids out there, you have to understand that since there's so much room, if you dedicate yourself to it, you could very quickly become, one of the better players in your high school, in your state, in your side of the country. And there's a lot of room for new players to go and do their thing, which is super, super cool. But it takes time once you get to that upper echelon to fine tune some things. One of people I mentioned previously, Donovan Hugel, who's, a great mentor and coach, and then teammate of mine now, said to me that the jump from high school to high school club is one thing. You go to enough practices, you build enough skill work, you listen to your coaches, you'll make that jump to the New Jersey State team. From New Jersey State team to college, depending on the amount of tournaments you go to and the college level team you go to, you might not see a crazy difference. The upper level college teams, you definitely will. Some of the lower medium level ones, you'll automatically be into the rotation pretty quickly. The jump from that college to the club and pro formats, which are, the peak of what the sport is today, is a very different jump. It just, intrinsically, these are people that are now full adult grown men willing to shove and throw you around and lay you out, because this is what they do with every waking moment that they're not working or sleeping. This is their passion. This is what they get paid to play now, which is such an amazing thing. And they want to win more than anybody has. They've surpassed every expectation at every level that they've gone to, and this is the peak of the sport. So that jump from like the college to club level, when you want to play at that level, is different, and you have to take yourself very seriously to, between diet, exercise, and time commitment. It's just a different ball game at that point. You're spending a lot of time playing and thinking about the game of Frisbee, which you probably haven't done prior, when you get to that level.
I think what a lot of athletes don't understand is you cannot train once or twice a week with the anticipation of playing at any level of college, never mind at the Division I level. And then, if you don't apply yourself, you won't even sniff an opportunity with the pros. I think there's a lot of people think you can just show up, and there's a very, very select few who can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So you have guys that where Frisbee's positioned, you have people that come up through the youth scene like I did and played a lot of years, and they're helpful in teaching other guys. And then sometimes in college, like you pick up someone who's playing it for the first time and takes onto the sport very quickly, just becomes very good, very fast, because there's just so much room in the sport for new talent and new growth. And then once you get to that pro level, that it flips on its head again. You really have to be by my junior year of college, when I really decided that's what I was going to do, and I really wanted to see where I could go, we were trying to figure out ways to fit in 2-a-day workouts. And, we had practice Monday, workout room Tuesday, practice Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're doing some kind of, stretching or prep work, and then tournament Saturday and Sunday could be like a week for us. So it's every day. And then you're obviously making sure that you're taking care of yourself outside of it, because the best ability is availability. So, and especially with the way like Frisbee's played, you end up over exerting yourself playing in youth leagues and with friends out on a random Saturday. And then you have practice, and then you have something else that you randomly signed up for. So you can overexert yourself just because it's a ton of fun, but you can end up signing up for too much. So you have to temper your expectations with what amount of time you have. And if you want to go play at that pro level, spending a lot of time and thinking about and being intentional about the way that you prep yourself for those moments.
You raise a very good point in your answer just now, and I'd like to follow up on that. Do you think the state of sports today, the way kids are being pushed to perform and play, is helping or hurting them?
It's a really good question. It depends on the sport. Let's be super clear about that. I think that's number one. But two, I personally think that we should be taking it a little less seriously. I think that the fun of a lot of sports should be pushed more, but that's maybe my Frisbee background versus like a baseball or wrestling, where it's a little bit different. But I think you see a lot of these kids burn out these days, and such a loss of talent of like so many amazing athletes that can go and do such amazing things out on these these fields and courts, and they burn out because they lost the love of the game. They didn't see the fun in it anymore. We pushed them too hard too early. It's a super fine line. And I think also you see the opposite. I mean, you see interviews with, these college level basketball players, AJ at BYU, who's talking about like they had to send him to Vegas on like a relaxed vacation because he's hitting 2-3 day workouts, and they think he's going to burn himself out. I mean, that's a different level of athlete, a different tier of, human being at that point. He's about to go to the NBA. But I think that it's really important to find the fun in it early, and continue to try to find the fun in it. I mean, we talk about constantly about making your workouts fun, because if you're just suffering through them, you just lose the passion for getting the most out of every rep. And I think that's not good for anybody and good for the sport at all.
Yeah, I would agree.
Oh yeah, I agree. One thing you said earlier that I really liked is that little quote: "The best ability is availability." Can you explain where you learned that? Because I'm very curious.
100%. I've torn ligaments in both my ankles, and that was my big injury throughout high school and a little bit of college. And it sucks not to be out there on the field. I'm one of the people, and I'm sure that you guys were there, that like you want to be out there in the moments. I don't want to be watching the play occur. I want to be in the play, having a winning contribution, having an impact. And so my senior year, my 3 weeks prior to my state finals, we had a one-off scrimmage against a New York team, and I just bumped into somebody and spun off of them incorrectly, and I tore, I think, 1 or 2 ligaments in my right ankle. Not terribly. I was fine to try to walk on it, a few weeks later. But then my state final, I wrapped up and took a bunch of medicine and was playing on a burnt ankle for most of the game. And 11-11s, we played a 13 in that format. 11-11s, I bump into somebody again and roll off of it, and I'm out for the rest of the game with 2 points left, and it's tied up. So those things will always forever haunt me. I hate not being on the field and not being able to have an impact. You know, you play and you train so hard for those moments. So you want to be out there, and 100% the best ability is being, having the ability to go out there and do your thing. So if you can't do that, it just, limits your ability to make those plays and have those fun moments and create those memories.
So Luke, ultimate is still not a mainstream sport, say, in relationship to other sports that are out there. So what are some of the realities and sacrifices that the athletes and coaches of the sport are making that people don't realize?
It's really another great question. I would say, time is a big one. I mean, these are people that are still potentially working full-time roles outside of the pro level. So we're talking about going from your regular 9 to 5 into, maybe you hit a morning run into a 9 to 5, into, another lift in the afternoon, and then doing that, every day. You're sacrificing a lot of time with family, friends. I mean, these people, want to have kids and have families when they get, older and older. And, it's time with my friends and my family that I don't get to have. It's new connections. And so I don't, the sacrifices, I love it, but I think time is number one. And I think two is a little bit of, definitely money. When you get to this level, people are paying you to play, paying for comping your expenses. This is like a big thing. So to be afforded that, that amazing opportunity, you really have to take it a little more seriously. Like, you want to, put the best product out there. And so I think now there's a monetary aspect as well that is the sport is unfamiliar with.
Can you talk a little bit about what it's the meaning behind representing New Jersey, representing that New York market, now that being at Empire?
Yeah. Yet again, super grateful for that opportunity. I've been watching the Empire, since I was maybe like a junior, senior in high school, and then watched them all throughout college. They're like the team that I really wanted to play for. They have been a powerhouse within the UFA for multiple years, winning 3 championships, I think, in 4 years, and going undefeated back-to-back seasons. It was just, so one, like, I'm from the area. My high school coach is a part of, now is co-coach or head coach of that team. So I just have individual ties that I want to go see my friends and mentors succeed. And then additionally, to be afforded that experience and that opportunity to go and show what I can do and prove how I can help us win more games and push us to the next level. Just like super grateful, super grateful, and feeling almost like a pinch me moment of like, I get to be out there on the field with those guys that I grew up watching. And I get to go push them and, talk smack during practice and talk smack during games. But super grateful, and definitely was just something I wasn't expecting right away. But definitely just one of the moments you like look back on, wow, like, that, can't believe that happened. Can't wait to, jump ladder. Can't wait to get to the next peak. But this was definitely like an awesome validation, and so grateful that I got afforded that experience.
When people hear professional athlete, they think of talent. But from your experiences, what mindset actually separates those athletes who make it from those who almost make it?
So, I mean, the easy answer is some hard work and dedication and perseverance. I think it's a little bit of insanity for Frisbee. I mean, we're talking about guys that maybe don't have, like, when you're training this hard for a sport like this, it's not the upside of baseball. We're not going to go to the MLB. It's a little bit of love and passion for Frisbee. That, yes, the talent is there. And we're now getting to the, this hard work of 1-2 a day workouts, making sure my diet is right, all my supplements lined up every day. There's definitely all of that. But it's also a little bit of craziness. You have to be a little crazy to fall in love with the sport and do this every day and love it as much as we do. So what truly separates them is the hard work and perseverance. My perfect answer would be a little bit of being, a little insane, a little crazy about how awesome Frisbee is.
I think I agree with you. I think there has to be a level of crazy
In every sport, I feel like
in every
too.
single sport, because if we touch back on a question we talked about a little earlier, obviously we want to have fun, but at some point we realize for those of us, there's a level of talent. Like in your case, you knew at some point you could wrestle at the Division I level. I knew at some point that I could play baseball in college, and ultimately ended up at a school that turned out to be Division II. But you really have to commit yourself at some point to say, if I want to do this, you have to make those sacrifices and change what your daily habits are, your discipline, your responsibility, staying on top of everything, and a lot of what you've talked about, Luke.
Yeah, it just doesn't. I think for everybody it happens at a different time, but the sacrifices start to kick in, and you realize that, like, if I want to go do that at that level, and I want to go push myself and see how far I can go and push my limits, I've got to push them, and I've got to really break down what I thought was my previous limit, and I've got to go past it, and I've got to go further, and I've got to run harder, and I've got to work out harder for longer. So I think that's like a part of the fun. That journey of pushing yourself is definitely a part of it. But you have to be a little insane. You have to be a little crazy to say, I'm gonna get my my butt whooped at all practice, and then I'm gonna go home and I'm gonna eat right, and the next day I'm gonna go for the longest run I can, and I'm gonna go back to practice and get my butt whooped again, and again and again and again, until I'm eventually doing the stuff that they're doing and eventually winning a little more often. But it's a little bit of insanity to go continue to try the stuff you've been beat at. Go back out there and get beat 100 times just so that you can beat them the 101st time. And I think that happens in all sports. But that 101st time hits like nothing else. Let me tell you, the time that you're doing the butt whooping is a lot better. So a little bit of craziness involved.
What does a daily practice look like in ultimate frisbee?
Yeah. So I mean, at the pro level these days, I mean, in my short tenure, my few practices that I've been to already, it's a 45-minute warm up, 30-minute warm up. We're talking, guys are getting taped, and set, ankles and knees and shoulders and stuff taped. Um, you know, a pretty set warm up for 30, 45 minutes, get the body moving, and like into like zone 2 heart rate, maybe a little zone 3 if you're getting towards the end of your warm up. And then from there, we're into a little bit of skill work, probably drilling a specific focus that we have for that day. Something that we want to improve on our offensive defensive side, or if there's certain an end of quarter situation or end of beginning of quarter situation, or a specific team that we know we're going against, and we have to incorporate this kind of offense and this kind of defense. So it's a little bit of skill work and prep work right now, and then it's a lot of live reps. Throwing that into a half field scrim, a 3/4 field scrim, start on the sideline every, for 15, 20 reps in a row. How do we want to get out of this spot? So it's a quick warm up, getting the body right, making sure you're set to go, and then maybe a little bit of skill work, and mentally focusing on how we want this to look. And then how does that skill translate to the big field? How we want this to look when we're 7v7 out there against the other team.
So it's a lot of live scrimmages for the most part.
I would say so. And that's the best
Gotcha.
way to learn right
Mhm.
now. Yet again, like, I think that the sport is super young in that capacity of figuring out what format looks best. But I think that, when you get to this level, these guys have the skills to do what they need to do. That's not the problem. It's, can they do those skills with the chemistry and the other guys on the field, and how quickly and efficiently can they do those things? And is there anything else that, when we're training this one aspect, if we're working on our end zone offense, our red zone offense, is there anything that we can see on a live field that we're missing, another opportunity? Because these guys are so talented that they can make a lot of different things work. What works at the highest capacity? What works 99.99% of the time? How can we put the ball in the end zone as close to 100% of the time as possible?
It's like the littlest things make the biggest difference.
100%.
Right, yep.
Easily.
Oh, I've brought this up before. It's the attention to details,
Correct. Yep.
and all that. Luke, I just thought about this. First day on the practice field with the Empire. Any nervousness on that first day?
Yeah. So I admitted to Nunez, maybe prematurely, that this was the first time I think I had been nervous in like 4 years. I don't remember being as nervous as I was. I think it was maybe a little bit of like imposter syndrome. I wanted to see one go in the hoop before I was ready to do my thing out there. Also, these guys are just very, very talented, very, very good at the game of ultimate. And I get my butt whooped constantly. I'm talking about, I have a good moment, and the next moment I'm getting dunked on. It's like not even close. And so it's super awesome. I get to learn a ton, and I get to soak all that knowledge and, like so much experience in, which is I'm super grateful for. And I get to do my thing out there. Like I'm definitely not, just getting mollywopped the whole time. But yeah, first few practices have been definitely a learning curve to see how much better these guys are and how much focus there is into that, last 1% of the game. And now I'm less nervous than I was, but at first it was like, I need to show these guys what I can do. I mean, they signed me. They put my name on the dotted line. I want to prove that I can go and do these things out there. And a little bit at that level, the field and game works a little bit differently. So the field's a little bit bigger. It can impact how you've been playing the game for a few years. The actual rules aren't all that different, but there's also a learning curve to that style of the game as well.
You touched on a very interesting point. You brought up the term imposter syndrome, and you just said it yourself. The umpire believed in you. They thought enough of you to sign you to a professional contract. So that has to instill some level of confidence in you. But how do you overcome feeling that in that moment?
So I think it's going back to your basics. It's realizing that everybody saw the same thing that you've been seeing for years. You are here for the right reasons. And even if you feel like, oh, they made a mistake, which isn't the case, you still have a lot to give and a lot to show. And especially right now, I think it's just going back to your basics. What can I do with 100% intensity, with the highest level of success? So for me, like in Ultimate Frisbee, there's like the kickoff or the pull. And it's like, okay, if I'm going to do one thing really well, I'm just going to start with running as hard as I can to get as most pull coverage as possible. I'm going to be the first person down on that kickoff return and playing defense from that first second that they even touch the disc. Like the moment that they even pick up the disc, I'm going to be down there trying to muck up their offense. And so it's finding one thing that you're just like, I'm going to get good at this, and then we'll pick up the next thing and the next thing. And if we're struggling in this area, we'll make it as easier for ourselves as possible for right now until we can do that at the highest level. But going back to basics definitely helps, because you see the ball go in the hoop once or twice, 3 times, and you're like, oh no, I can do that. I remember that I can do that at this level. That's why they signed me. And seeing that validation, it's a positive reinforcement cycle for somebody like myself, and I think a lot of other athletes.
So what are some of your goals now that you're, a professional? What is a long-term goal, medium-term goal that you have for yourself, embarking on this new career?
Yeah, I famously am not into 5-year plans. I think the
Mhm.
5-year plans are a bunch of mess, but in terms of short and medium term things, like short term, I just want to get better. This is I've like been as I continue to say, like afforded a really awesome opportunity. And this team is especially incredibly talented. I mean, these we have people coming in from Belgium to come play and fly across the world to come play, and they're some of the best players that are currently within our sport. So right now, I just want to get better. I just want to soak up all this knowledge and see how these guys operate, so that I can go and do that. And then I would say medium is I actually really love helping the sport grow, and I want to put out the best product that I can and be a good role model for other people that are in the sport. And so I think that like finding ways to support youth and local club and leagues, and also just being a good role model that like if these 10 kids from their high school are going to show up to our game, like I want them to see what pro Frisbee looks like. I want them to love the game that I did. So just putting out a good role model and a good example for them is another big thing for me right now in the medium space.
Luke, closing thoughts here on the podcast. A message that you can send out there to youth athletes and families, whether it's the ultimate world or just sports in general. What advice can you offer them?
I would say I'm a big fan of having a little bit more fun with it. I took things way too seriously early on, and for better and for worse. And I think that like that competitive spirit is awesome. It's what drives sports, is what drives passion and love for the game. But finding ways to make it fun is super, super important. I think there's a push for that recently of how do we make this more fun for ourselves and keep the competitive side, and Frisbee's in that niche where I have to go as as competitive and as hard at, during the game as I can, but also respect my opponent and have fun with them, because if I foul them, I have to have a conversation with them midway through this game. So for athletes and parents as a whole, like, let your kids have fun, and if you're a kid, have your fun, and find ways to make the competitive, hard training as fun as possible, because it's really the journey along the way. Like, the peaks are awesome, getting to the top, signing the contract, getting pro, whatever. That's all awesome, super validating. But you find once you get there, it's just another valley, and you're gonna continue to climb back up to the top for the next thing that you want to go after. And it's really the climb that is like the most fun. It's those long weekends of training with your teammates. It's those nights alone in the gym where you're focusing on that one thing and you finally have it go right the 101st time. Those are like the real fun moments where you're like, wow, I got better today. And I noticed it, and it wasn't grueling. It was a lot of fun. And that process is super, I think, important for athletes and parents to recognize.
Well, Luke, we want to once again thank you for taking the time out of your day to join us and being a part of the podcast. And as a reminder to all our listeners, game 1 on the season, as well as game 1 of your professional career, is May 1st at 7 p.m. against the Toronto Rush. You guys play at the stadium at Memorial Field. Where in New York is that?
To be honest, I don't even know. I won't lie to you. We haven't been there yet. I haven't been there just yet. Okay. Our practices are in the New Rochelle area. I have the address pinned on like a note sheet, so I know where to click when I need to arrive there. But I don't think I could tell you the town right now. I haven't been there just yet, but I've seen pictures and video of the stadium. It's very, very cool. Everybody, if you have the chance, you should definitely come out. It's a super fun time, and I appreciate you guys having me on as well.
No, we appreciate it, and thank you. And if I remember correctly, Nunez said it's up near West Point, so I think we're close to that area.
He's just gonna show up and play.
He's just gonna show up
and play.
It's much disc.
Easier, yeah. We're talking cleats, jersey, disc, and just go out there and ball is the kind of mindset. So yeah, I'll definitely, I might get some slack for not knowing exactly where our stadium is right now. I've seen it a bunch, and it's super awesome. It's a really cool spot. It's got a video board and huge stands, and the turf is super nice. But if you ask me how to get there, I'm not sure I could tell you right now.
The older guys are gonna make fun of you for that if they listen to this.
might be the case. Maybe the case.
Couple of sprints coming your way.
Yeah. That Nunez might have to install a new rookie thing for something like this in the future, so you guys know where to go.
I think I'm the only true rookie on the team right now, so I think I'd be the only one receiving punishment for not knowing exactly where we're headed. But I'll be there on May 1st. I'll tell you that.
There you go.
Hey, as long as you show up, that's all that matters. Well, Luke, we thank you again. We appreciate it. All the best and success on the season that you're about to embark on. And that is a wrap on episode 47 of Destination Talk with Paz and Harry. Until we see you again.
Cut it.
Mile 21 Media.